Have you ever tried to remember your childhood and felt like whole chapters were missing? Not because it was horrible, not because nothing happened, but because somewhere between 6 and 17, you had to grow up and parts of the story simply got skipped. That invisible gap is what we're talking about today. Sometimes childhood ends long before it's supposed to, and it's rarely some dramatic, cinematic moment. More often, it's quiet. It looks like cooking dinner for your siblings at 10 while your parent works a double shift, or acting as the translator during your parents' arguments, or learning to read the room long before you could read a novel. Here's what doesn't get said enough. The version of you who grew up too fast never disappears. That part still shapes your choices. Even now, picture a 9-year-old who suddenly becomes the most responsible person in the house. Not by choice, but by necessity. Something shifts in that moment. Psychologists call it parentification when a child takes on adult roles and responsibilities. But the term sounds clinical. It doesn't capture what it feels like to be small and carrying something far bigger than you. Researcher Lisa M. Hooper found that parentified children often appear unusually mature. But here's the critical part. It's not true maturity. It's a survival response. A child's nervous system adapts to operate in crisis mode as its default. And what felt normal to you is often someone else's emergency. People who grow up this way usually become highly skilled in certain areas. Reading emotions? You could sense your parents' mood the second they walked in. Anticipating needs? You learned to respond before anyone asked. Problem solving? It became automatic because failing wasn't an option. But those superpowers come with a hidden cost when you may not notice until decades later. Here's the irony. Children who grow up too fast often struggle most with the smallest things. Not major life crises. They can handle those almost effortlessly. It's the simple, everyday moments that trip them up. And here's where it gets even more revealing. Asking for help. Resting without guilt. Being silly. Carefree. For someone who grew up too fast, those things can feel almost unsafe. Because early on, you learn that the world doesn't pause for you. Your needs came second. Stability depended on how well you held everything together. That wasn't just a lesson, it became your operating system. And it's still running. In adulthood, this often looks like being the person everyone turns to in a crisis. The dependable one. The fixer. The one who always manages. You're drawn to people who need saving. It might sound like a savior complex, but it's deeper than that. Being needed feels like love. It's the only version of love you were taught to recognize. Relationships can get complicated. Intimacy feels exposing. Vulnerability once wasn't safe, it was a risk you couldn't afford. So even now, even with someone who truly cares, there's a part of you that stays guarded, that refuses to fully relax. You may find yourself attracted to emotionally unavailable partners. And before you judge yourself, understand this. Unavailability feels familiar. It feels like home. Because home was where you gave endlessly, and receiving was rare. So when someone offers steady love and consistent presence, it can feel strangely uncomfortable, suspicious, like something must be about to fall apart. There's also the issue of control, not necessarily toxic control, though it can drift there. More like a deep, instinctive need to manage every variable. Because once, unpredictability meant chaos, meant danger, meant everything collapsing. So you plan. You overanalyze. You try to stay 10 steps ahead. And a lot of it more than most people realize. You run through 16 different scenarios before making the smallest decision. People label you type A, anxious, a perfectionist. But what they're really seeing is a child who learned early that lowering their guard came with consequences. And the exhaustion? It's real. That deep, bone-level fatigue that sleep doesn't fix isn't laziness or weakness. It's what happens when your nervous system has been in overdrive since elementary school. Your body never learned what true rest feels like because rest wasn't safe. Rest meant things could fall apart. Here's something that might hit hard. Many people who grew up too fast have a complicated relationship with success. You achieve things, big things, impressive things, and yet it never feels like enough. There's always a voice pushing more, better, faster prove yourself. Because your worth got tangled up with your usefulness a long time ago, and the harsh truth. The world rewards that. Society actually loves people who grew up too fast. We're productive, independent, low maintenance. We deliver results. But no one asks what it cost us to become this way. There's something else too. You become fluent in a language most people never have to learn. Emotional labor. You can manage a room full of tension like a conductor leading an orchestra. You diffuse conflict before it erupts because you sense it building. You make everyone else comfortable while you're quietly drowning. And the strangest part, you might not even notice you're doing it anymore. It's automatic like breathing, except breathing keeps you alive. And this slowly drains you. You can be surrounded by friends, family, coworkers, and still feel completely alone. It's not loneliness in the obvious sense. It's feeling alone because no one truly sees how much effort you put into keeping everything steady, keeping everyone okay. And asking someone to acknowledge that effort can feel like failure. Like you didn't succeed at the one role you were supposed to master. So, what do you do with all of this? How do you heal from something you're not even sure qualifies as trauma? It wasn't one catastrophic event. It was 1,000 quiet moments of being too much and not enough at the same time. First, you grieve. And yes, that sounds dramatic, but the loss is real. You grieve the childhood you didn't get to live. The version of you who could have been messy, needy, careless, and still fully loved. That child deserved more. Saying that doesn't make you ungrateful, it makes you honest. Second, and this is the hard part, you have to understand that being needed is not the same as being valued. Your worth isn't defined by what you produce or how well you regulate other people's emotions. You are not a human doing. You are a human being, and being is enough. You're allowed to rest, to not have the answers, to fall apart sometimes. You're allowed to receive without earning it first. And maybe most importantly, you're allowed to be a beginner at being cared for, because that's what you are. Being 20, 30, or 60 doesn't change the fact that you were never taught how to let someone else carry the weight. So be patient with yourself while you learn. That child who grew up too fast did something extraordinary. They held everything together. They were capable, resilient, unbelievably brave, but they don't have to run the show anymore. It's safe to let someone else take a turn. It's safe to soften. It's safe to be young at heart, even if you're arriving late to it. You've been gripping control for so long. What would it feel like to finally loosen your hands? If this resonated with you, consider subscribing. And if you'd like to support more conversations like this, you can join the channel as a member. I truly appreciate your support.